Bright QT. Every student matters.
Hello students. So let's start with our next subtopic here, that is women's representation in politics. Now before this students, we were talking about gender and politics, right? And in this part, we understood how this gender division works out when we are talking in the field of politics, right? So, by now you have understood the term that is gender and how the division has been created in our society with respect to gender, right? But when we were talking about the role of politics or role of gender in politics, what did we understand? We understood that when we are comparing the socially constructed roles, as we are placing in this definition in gender, we see that the role of women in politics is what? Is minimal. Minimal in sense, not great or not up to mark as compared to men, right? So the participation of women is less as compared to that of men in politics. Now I gave this example that when we recall the name of prime ministers in our country, or in fact the presidents, what are we seeing? We see that majority of them were men. The people in power, they are generally men, right? So if we are recalling the name of prime minister, female or women prime minister, we can recall the name of Indira Gandhi. When we are talking about president, we can recall the name of Srimati Pratibha Patil, right? So here what are we seeing? Definitely we can justify the statement that role of women in politics is minimal. So this is our topic here, women's representation in politics. Rise of feminist and women's movements in India to get adequate attention and to get power in hands. Now we are seeing that women are fighting for their rights. They are getting self-aware about a lot of things, about their position, their social status, where in our society. So they wanted to stand as per standards with men. The socially constructed roles that have been given to women were now being challenged. That they can also come in the field of politics, they can also become scientists, they can also become astronauts and whatnot. Right? So here it led to the rise of feminist and women's movements in our country, right? Throughout all the states, as we can see that. Now, one way to ensure is to have more women as elected representatives. One way to ensure what, students? One way to ensure that they should get power in hands. Now, they were wanting the power through which they could change the society. They could change the mentality or the role that have been confined to the women, roles that have been confined to women. They could change the whole idea of that. So for that they thought that women should be elected as representatives in our society in more numbers. Now how it could help? This could help them to voice their opinion. Now they could change the policies. Why? Because these elected representatives, they are the lawmakers. People responsible for making new laws as per the demands of citizens. Am I correct or not, students? Yes? So, when we are talking about the role of women in politics, let us understand the proportion of women in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha or the state assemblies. Now, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state assemblies, these are some of the terms that you must be knowing. Right? When we are talking about the parliament of our country, where the elected representatives, they are sitting. These are the two houses. One is the Lok Sabha, the other one is Rajya Sabha. So, how many women are elected representatives there? The proportion of women in legislature is very low. Legislature as in law-making body. Right? So in Lok Sabha, 12% of total are elected women members as per the reports of 2014. So as per the reports of 2014, the latest, what are we getting to know? We see that 12% of the total seats, right, of the total seats in Lok Sabha, that is how much students? 545, 543 to 545. So total number of seats is this much. Now 12% of total seats are elected women members. See the criteria or see the percentage here. Quite low percent here. 12%, right? So if you calculate, less number of women members are there in Lok Sabha, right? Now look at the graph here. Now this is the graph just for your reference. Since you are learning this topic, students, so you must know or must understand how this is happening. What is the role of women in politics, right? How many women representatives are there in our country sitting in Lok Sabha and participating in the lawmaking procedure, right? So if we see in 1952, what are we seeing? Number of women is somewhere more than 20. Coming till 2019, right? In 2019, what are we seeing? Somewhat less than 80. And around 12, more than 12 or 12% around, right? Around this, we are saying that women have been elected as representatives, right? So through this graph, clearly what are we seeing? We are seeing that there is rise of women participation in politics. But is this suffice? Is this sufficient, this participation of women, when we compare it with the male? No, students, definitely. Since they are fighting for equal rights to get power in their hands, and they thought that getting power in hands can be only through by getting women elected as representatives. So these things are changing in our society. Now there was a time when women were not allowed to vote. And today is the day when women, they are trying and they are participating much more in the political arena. Again, if we look at some of the parties, again just for a reference, I am giving you these examples so that we can have a real-time scenario here, right? So, here what are we seeing? A total of 716 women candidates were fielded by various parties in 2019 Lok Sabha election, the latest general election that took place in our country. So when we are talking about one party here, that is BJP, total 301, men 261, women 40. Percent of women winners 13%. Trinamool, total number members 22, 13 men, 9 women. Indian National Congress 51, 45, 6. Now what are you seeing here? What I am trying to tell you, students? Here I am trying to show you the minimal participation of women in politics, right? Or even if they are wanting to join, but there is not sufficient space or people are not wanting them to join. So various reasons are there, right? So here you have to just understand that there is a minimal participation of women in politics, right? Looking at these numbers here. Now the question arises, how can we solve it? How can we increase the participation of women in politics? So first way is to have a fair proportion of women in elected bodies. Now very obvious answer here. Now if anyone says or asks you that how are you going to improve the situation? How are you going to increase the participation of women in politics? Definitely will say that a demand should be raised for fair proportion of women in politics, right? Only through that the participation can be increased and women should be encouraged to participate, right? They should be socially aware. So in panchayats, as a result of it, 1/3 of seats are reserved for women. Now you all know, students, that there is 3-tier government in our country. The first one is our central government. The second one is our state government. And the third one is at village level, that is village panchayats. So when we are talking about village panchayat, we see that 1/3 of total seats have been reserved for women. More than 10 lakh elected women representatives in these bodies. When we are talking about the local bodies and here particularly in panchayat, right? Now demands have been made for reserved seats in parliament as well. Now here what do we see? Like panchayat, we are seeing that women also want reserved seats in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and state assemblies. Okay? So Women's Representation Bill envisaging 33% reservations in state assemblies as well as in Lok Sabha. So you have to keep in mind that the main demand raised by these women were reservation of 33% seats, right, in state assemblies and Lok Sabha for women candidates. Gender division, therefore, is an example that some form of division needs to be expressed in society. So definitely, students, we have talked about one division here, one social division, that is gender division. Now, gender division should be expressed or should not be expressed. What do you think now after reading all these scenarios here? The case studies, the scenarios, the basic concept that we have understood through gender division. Definitely, students, we can say that to express gender division in politics is a good thing. Why? It is the right of women to raise their voice, to raise their opinions, to ask for their rights. Right? Definitely it is correct? Yes. So this was all about gender and politics. How gender division has influenced or how it has been expressed in political terms. Okay? Now coming to our exercise section, based on this topic, we have few questions here. So question 1, what is the main demand of women organizations and activists regarding reservation of seats for women in Lok Sabha and state assemblies? We just read it right now and you can clearly answer this question. So what is the main demand here? So women organizations and activists, they have demanded for 33% seats reservation in Lok Sabha and state assemblies. After what? After we see that in panchayats, 1/3 seats have been reserved for women. Correct? So this is how you have to answer this question. The next question is, discuss the gender issue with respect to its political expression. Now in this question, we are talking about gender issue with respect to what? Political expression. Role of gender in politics. Now what are we going to write here? If you want to enhance your answer, you can give the definition of gender at first. What do we understand by gender? So, socially constructed roles and behaviors to distinguish between male and female. Now, in our society, we see that role of women in politics is minimal. Right? We can talk about this. You can give examples of women representatives in Lok Sabha. The total percentage till 2014 is how much? 12%. We can also talk about how voices have been raised to get power in hand, and it can be ensured only through the participation of women or women being elected as representatives, right? So the demands of women activists, the demands of women who are fighting in politics for the reservation of seats for women, right? We can talk about that. So this is how you are going to answer this question, students. You are going to give the definition of gender. You are going to talk about the role of women, particularly women, because what are we seeing? The disadvantaged group here is women, right? We can talk about the role of women in politics. We can justify that statement that how the role of women is minimal. We can talk about the percentage of women in Lok Sabha as elected representatives, and what are the main demands of women or activists who are fighting for their rights in Lok Sabha or state assemblies, right? So this is how you are going to compile this answer.